Make sure to put the volume all the way up for my videos. First, thank you, Lily, for that kind introduction and that special shared memory. Hearing it again remind me how little we understood about one another's lives as children, how close we lived, yet how far apart our inner worlds remained. Moments like this return differently in adulthood and open windows we never knew they were there. This forms the heart of my talk today. I will show selected cuts from Past Forward, Journeys to Transnistria, filmed in 2002, over 20 years ago. The film layers two conversations, my interview with my mother, and years later, my daughter's interview with her grandmother, over a return to the sites of my mother's wartime journey from Dorohoi, Romania to Transnistria in today's present-time Ukraine. The story unfolds at a child's level without relying on Holocaust imagery and traces how memory is shaped and reshaped as it passes through three generations. Much of my work has focused on these gaps, how memory moves forward, what carries through, and what remains silent. This photograph, my daughter boarding on the bus on her first day of school, was a turning point. It was the first time I felt my mother's childhood not only as history, but as something I could grasp viscerally. Growing up, the Holocaust was not hidden at home. My mother, having been a gifted teacher and educator, answered my questions in ways a child could hold. But it was only decades later, when my daughter reached the same age my mother had been in 1941, that the contrast became real. My daughter stepping onto a school bus, my mother stepping onto a cattle car. Seeing my mother's childhood through through my own motherhood shaped the framework of the film. The film opens with a question I asked my mother in one of the interviews. Was it painful when I asked? Filmed in a handheld direct style, I stay behind the camera throughout, appearing for a few seconds at the very beginning and again at the end in a home video. This opening moment reflects the core of the film, a daughter trying to approach a fragile past and a mother deciding what she can share. רצית לספר לי?
אני יודעת, מה ששאלת סיפרתי, אבל...
וכששאלתי אותך זה היה כמו לפעור פצע או משהו?
לא, אז פחות. לא יודעת, אולי באיזשהו מקום שמחתי ששאלת.
My mother doesn't have any childhood photos. At least none were left. And until she was 12, leaving her past behind and getting her life together, there was only one crumpled, faded small photo of her parents, who died in the months before the war reached their home, that her older sister kept in a locket. I see my daughter looking at the only photo left of my mother's past, the photo of her parents. Thousands of miles and 54 years separate my daughter from my mother. Family visits bring them together, and family photos keep them closer when apart. She's asking my mother about the memories of her lost childhood.
At the time the story began, my grandmother, Toby Mendel, remembers very little anti-Semitism. The Romanian army had just joined the German side.
The next cut juxtaposes my daughter's early childhood with my mother's memories at the same age. In home videos, they played together, Hebrew word games, spelling exercises, categories, activities my mother created for her grandchildren whenever possible. At 4, my mother already knew Romanian poems her older sister recited at school, but she never had her first day of school. In Transnistria, her sisters traced letters for her in the dirt. After the war, she advanced quickly, excelling in school and graduating from the Kibbutzim Teaching College, eventually starting at Ramat Rachel and ending at Beit Berl. and becoming a dedicated educator who later put her heart and soul into teaching Hebrew to new immigrants. Her deep love of books and intellectual curiosity shaped both me and my children. These small, ordinary scenes of learning highlight the childhood she rebuilt.
My grandmother doesn't remember having many toys. She remembers playing with a rag doll that her mother made for her. They didn't own much, but they were a warm, loving family. In the summer of 1940, everything changed. The Romanian soldiers started a pogrom in Dorohoi.
אחד ביולי, התחיל החופש הגדול, ילדים משחקים בחוץ, פתאום כל האימהות קוראות לילדים לבוא הביתה. עד כשחי הילדים לא היה להם לא מקלט ולא ידעו להתגונן, הכי הרבה ישבו על הרצפה וקראו תהילים. הם רצו לתפוס את הסבא שלי, שהיה לו את החנות עם ההשקעות. כן. והגויים שגרו מולנו, שהיו איתנו שכנים, יראו הנה שם זה הבית.
That was the first time my grandmother remembers being affected by anti-Semitism.
לא יודעת. מזכרת. בסדר? תכתבי בעברית, ציון.
הם עשו הכל. לא רק את החלונות והדלתות וזה, גם כל הסחורה, הכל. ותארי לך שבדיוק מכניסים סחורה חדשה בהתחלת חודש, כל הסטוק, הכל. ואחרי זה גם לא נתנו לפתוח מחדש, כי כבר השלטונות הלאימו.
The soldiers gathered all the Jews in the center of their neighborhood and shot them. They fired without caring who or what they shot. One of the people who was hit by a bullet was Toby's grandfather, Hershko. A bullet hit him in the back. He was 80 years old. He fell down dead into the dried-out stream nearby. The family couldn't bury him because it was too dangerous to go out. Two days later, the Romanian police gave the Jews permission to bury the dead. The home of the Mendel family was not harmed. Toby's father Isaac and his brother Israel attempted to reconstruct their ruined store, but the government said it was no longer their property. A new rule was passed that Jews couldn't own stores, and so the family was left with no income. Anti-Semitism had grown even stronger and reached Bessarabia, where the family of Toby's mother lived.
אמא שלי הייתה מאוד קשורה למשפחה שלה, שהיא הייתה באזור אחר, שאחר כך הוא נכבש על ידי הרוסים. הקשר עם המשפחה שלה, משם, האבא שלה והאחים שלה והאחיות שלה, היה מאוד הדוק. אבל בעקבות שאזור אחד נותק מהשני, אז הקשר נותק. זה מאוד השפיע על אמא שלי.
Toby's mother fell ill. She ended up dying in the spring of 1941.
Growing up, I learned fragments of a story, usually around Yom HaShoah, public rituals, radio programs, school assemblies, my chorus performances. I would come home, she'd ask me about my day, as she did every day, and I'd ask about her childhood. Ima, tell me what it was like. It always felt distant from my life. At the same time, as a kibbutz-born third-generation Sabra on my father's side, with strong Zionist kibbutz and Palmach histories surrounding me, I felt rather insulated growing up in Be'er Sheva. This clip bridges those worlds and enables the journey. The school has become the deportation train, the child who begins school, and the child whose schooling was interrupted before it began.
In the fall of 1941, the deportations of Jews from Dorohoi began.
טוב, אני כבר היה סתיו בינתיים, משמעות אמורה להתחיל כיתה א', ואז בדיוק היה...
Instead of starting first grade, Toby found herself beginning a different journey.
Here, I confront a memory I do not possess. My mother's early memories of train stand against my own childhood joy of train rides, heading north to visit the kibbutz my parents left, passing orchards and sea, which I reimagine, reframe, and borrow as post-memory. These sensory memories became part of my own vocabulary of place. This poem, which I wrote and narrate in Hebrew, draws on those landscapes and on random remnants my father kept in his desk drawer, a train warning sign, "Do not lean out," that found its way to my desk drawer. These layered childhood memories became a way to explore the space between inherited stories and lived experience.
The people were first on the train, which took them to the border between Romania and Ukraine.
זו הייתה רכבת בעימות בעצם. בקרונות הרכבת היה דחוס וצפוף, ללא אוויר, ללא מזון, ללא שום תנאים מינימליים. יכול להיות שאנשים גם נפטרו בתוך הרכבת או התעלפו. ועד היום אני לא כל כך אוהבת לנסוע ברכבת. למרות שזה רכבות שלא קירות כאן בארץ, נוח מאוד ברכבת. אבל אני נוסעת, אבל אני לא מתה לנסוע ברכבת.
בין כתבי פרדסים, בתים חמושי גגות אדומים חולפים באף, פורצים אל ריבוע החלום הפתוח. בין שמיים ומים פסי קצב דקיקים שוטפים בדממת תלאי חול צהובים יקודים בחמה. רסיסי מלח ים ניתחים בניחוח צחור של פריחה, ריבועי זיכרונות ניתחים בשמשת החלון המוסת, כריבועי פילם אילמים מסרט אחר חולפים פצזית לאורכה של מסילת המסע. לא להתכופף החוצה, אותיות רבועות מקועקעות בקפידה אל אמת החלון בקרון, ברכבת הנוסעת צפונה אל קיבוץ מחוזות ילדותי. Migrating birds open this section, signs of movement, season changing, and the rhythm of return. This part traces my mother's arc, arriving on a kibbutz, finding belonging, and building a life from the fragments she carried. Through assemblage of personal and family moments, this film reflects on how she reshaped herself through learning, discipline, and determination. It also shows how her journey echoes forward, how my daughter's childhood was shaped by the stability she created.
In the winter of 1944, the three sisters, Toby, Judith, and Miriam, returned to Dorohoi. Other children who also became orphans during the war returned with them. Children of all ages, from toddlers to teenagers, returned. All of these children went to an orphanage in Dorohoi that used to be a Jewish school before the war. Miriam and Judith had studied at the school before the war, but my grandmother didn't get to go to the school since they had been deported before her first day of school.
זה ברכה מסבא וסבתא. לשיר בת המצווה מזל טוב. היום לנו שמחה גדולה, כי שיר שלנו בת מצווה, ולא כימי ההולדת הרגילים. זהו שלב חדש בחיים. זהו גיל בו עוברים מילדות לבגרות. זהו גיל שנוטלים בו יותר אחריות. והיום לכבוד זו השמחה התכנסנו לחגוג לכבודה ולאחל לשיר שלנו באהבה כל טוב, אושר ומרבה הצלחה. ולהורייך היקרים, זה אנחנו, ממך רוב נחת, ושכולנו נזכה להיפגש ביחד בעוד הרבה מסיבות ותמיד לזכות בשמחות. באהבה רבה, סבא וסבתא.
On May 15, 1946, Toby, Judith, Miriam, and other children from the orphanage were sent to live in Israel. During all of the years of the war, Miriam, Judith, and Toby remained together. In Israel, they were separated for the first time because of their ages. Toby and 2 other girls her age were sent to a kibbutz. They wanted to go. The kibbutz was called Tigania Bet.
קצת קשה להאמין, אך זו אכן עובדה, שכבר חלפו יובל שנים מאז הגענו ארצה. משם, מן התופת, לאחר סבל ונדודים, הגענו לארץ לחוף מבטחים.
The film's final transition returns to the car ride heading south, mirroring the film's opening. From the moving car, the scene shifts to her hand turning album pages, post-war kibbutz life, and my mother's gradual emergence into adolescence in Israel, or Eretz, as she said in her first poem she wrote back at the orphanage for Transnistria child survivors in Romania. Poems she wrote in Hebrew underlay photos of her on the kibbutz, changed to photos of her holding me as an infant, documenting the family she built. These images mark the continuity she forged through will and imagination. A poem I wrote in English closes the film and reflects the central transition, fragility and strength, the desire to protect early memories behind glass while still moving forward. It is a final look at her journey and at the inheritance she shaped. I look at my mother's photos. She's 12, 13, 14, she's 16. And I see a valley girl, tan from working in the fields of the Jordan Valley on the kibbutz that became her home after the war, tan from walking the shores of the Sea of Galilee and the Jordan River, where the water sends endless ripples at the foot of tall palm trees. I see a flower girl, red, purple, and blue wild anemones which she picked in the fields, set her long hair on fire, as they do to the anemones hill by the kibbutz every spring. And I see a dreamer and a poet, stringing together lines after lines of new dreams and new hopes, in a new language, in a new world. And I saw a sabra, which is what native Israelis are often called, after that desert cactus fruit that is prickly on the outside and soft and sweet on the inside. Except she was always soft and sweet and so fragile on the outside, but hardened, frozen on the inside. She opened the door to her heart a crack, but never shuttered the glass wall that locked her memories within. She let me see it all, but never really let me in, and kept the world out of her childhood nightmares. In conclusion, fast forward to here and now, this final slide holds 3 photographs, all rooted in Kibbutz Nir Am on the Gaza border. My mother as a child in 1946 on the left, newly safe, finally photographed when she visited her sister, who raised her after the war, during the war. Nir Am became my mother's second home and held a special place in my heart just as well. Me as a baby at the center, piggy riding with my father, visiting my aunt, her sister on the kibbutz. And on the right, my daughter holding a red anemone, visiting my aunt during the Shiv'ah for my mother, my aunt's sister. In the background is a photo of my mother as a teenager holding the same wild anemones, an image that seeped into my poem and the film. My mother died in February 2023. Her oldest sister 5 weeks later. Her shloshim fell on Yom HaShoah. And then came October 7, adding another rupture to the year of loss. Yet, in these photos, I see continuity, quiet, insistent, and steady. A mother who rebuilt a childhood she never had, who gave her daughter and granddaughter both memory and the resilience to carry it. This is the inheritance I move forward with, sorrow and strength intertwined. With their passing, I lost my direct connection to the Holocaust. And this is why I returned to my aunt's home in Nir Am on the Gaza border, not only to mourn, but to witness how memory continues with us.